Welcome to the Mendocino Local Agency Formation Commission of December 4th. Let's do our first order of business is roll call, please.
Commissioner Doble.
Present.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Hamburg.
Here.
Commissioner Orth.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
Here.
Commissioner McCowan.
Here.
Commissioner Rosenberg.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning all. Moving on to public expression. Yes.
I would just like to announce that I do have another meeting. It's going to conflict with today's LAFCO meeting, and Supervisor or Commissioner McCowan will be taking my place, but I'll be leaving at 9:55.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to public expression. Anybody in the audience like to address the commission on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to other business, which is none, and then consent calendar. I would like to pull 4C. I did meet with Kerry Randall from the city and expressed to him the desire to change that paragraph. He was going to talk to the city attorney and provide us a new contract, and I'm hopeful that that will be here this month for the effective date of January 1. And then I also asked him if we could review also a 3-year agreement rather than a 1-year agreement. And once I get those, I'll bring it back to the commission for, well, I guess, yeah, I'll bring it back to the commission for final approval.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. The recommendation here is to authorize you to do that. Are we pulling it for a vote, or are you suggesting we not?
I think it was
Take this
authorized
action.
last time, wasn't it?
Well, the minutes reflect you were authorized to
Yeah.
negotiate with them
Mm-hmm.
regarding the cost of living.
But not approval for signing the agreement.
To me, that would be inherent in the ability to negotiate. The thing that wasn't discussed was a multi-year.
Right. So
But
what's
I think it also then said, and it's in the minutes, that we could just look at what it actually says, but I think it said and bring back in January or something.
Ratification. Oh.
That was today's decision.
what's the pleasure of the commission?
Do we need to pull it to discuss it further, or?
Yeah, I think we would.
It is pulled.
Yeah, we can pull
I
it.
wish to pull it.
To discuss further?
Well,
Okay.
I know that I don't have anything to report as of yet.
Okay.
So it's something we shouldn't approve. Anyone else? Terry?
Well, and I believe we should add to it if a 3-year renewal, a 3-year lease, rather than year by year and annual, should be negotiated
If
as
the
well.
goal is correct, yes. That's important.
And I would authorize the chair to sign pending that approval.
I will say. No, I will second.
Okay, on that particular item, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Doble.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes?
Commissioner Hamburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Orth.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll bring that back as soon as possible. Is there any other items to be pulled and discussed on the consent calendar?
I make a motion to accept the consent calendar except for the item pulled.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Doble.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamburg.
Yes.
Commissioner Orth.
Yes.
Commissioner Ward.
Yes. Well, that takes care of a lot of our packet right there. All right, we'll move on to public hearing items. This is a continuation of a public hearing to consider adoption of resolution approving the City of Fort Bragg and Municipal Service District Number 1 Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Update. Where you want to begin it, please?
Thank you. So at the last meeting, this item was continued from the last meeting. Staff was directed to look at 4 different items to consider adding a determination to reevaluate the suitability of including 2 rural residential areas that are located south of the city limits within the city sphere of influence. We have addressed that on page 79 of your packet in section 4.3.4. We also were directed to look at considering a determination for the city to study the feasibility of annexing the Noyo Harbor prior to the next SOI update. We did add a discussion on that on page 79 at 4.3.2. We did check, and there is currently no annexation plan. The recommendation, they do have general plan policies in place to develop an annexation plan for the Noyo Harbor area, and our determination follows that. Item 3 was to provide more information regarding the cost allocation plan accounting area, and we have addressed that and added discussion on page 46 of your agenda packet. That's section 2.5.3.1. We have also gone through and addressed typos and some suggested wording changes throughout the document, and believe that this is the final version of the document for your consideration. The city has reviewed it and provided input. They had hoped to send staff today, but not yet.
Okay, very good. John, did you get everything covered?
I appreciate the thorough work that staff has done based on the commission direction.
Okay, good. On item number 1 number 2, annexing Noyo Harbor, you pointed out it was in 4.3.2 on page 79, second paragraph. It basically says it is recommended the city and the county and Halbert District continue to collaborate in planning for future development, but it doesn't say anything about annexation.
It doesn't make a specific recommendation for annexation at this time. They have a specific planning process they're going through for the mill site, I believe, which is taking a lot of staff time, which is partly why we didn't include a hard determination for annexing that area. They will be working on an annexation plan as part of their general following through with their general plan policies.
Okay. Tony.
Yes, and their general plan specifies doing a specific plan with the county, with the harbor district, with the city. I think that's a precursor anyway.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. Anybody in the public would like to comment on this item? Seeing no one, we'll bring it back to the commission. If everything has been covered and no more comment, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to, did we close the public hearing?
No, we haven't. I just wanted to make sure there was no more comment.
Okay.
Seeing none, no more comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 10 after 9. And Carrie, what you have?
Well, I would like to move approval of the submitted document as corrected from the last meeting.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any more discussion? Let's do another roll call, please.
In your motion, may I include the resolution number, Commissioner Brown?
Oh, okay.
We consider that included in your resolution?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
thank
sorry.
you. No,
I should
that's
have
fine.
done that.
I just crossing my T's. Commissioner Doble?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Hamburg?
Yes.
Commissioner Orth?
Yes.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes. And I'd like to just make the comment again for the public that this was a very well-done MSR. If you want to learn a lot about Fort Bragg and their improvement district, it's got a lot of valuable information in there. Thanks again. Good job, staff.
And I just would like to apologize. I should have read it right off the recommended action.
Well, now we all can see that we've started to put the recommendation for the motion on there, so that takes a little bit of the work out for
Yes,
you all.
and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're just getting more and more efficient. Okay, we'll move on to item 6, workshop items. First one on our agenda is the South Coast Fire Protection District MSR SOI update.
Thank you. I wanted to start off with letting the commission know that we have 2 members from the South Coast Fire Protection District here in the audience, a board member and also the fire chief.
I'm glad I picked that one then.
And I want to also thank them very much for all the assistance they provided during this SOI update. So this is a workshop item, and we have provided the document in your agenda packet. This item starts on page 89 of the packet. The district boundary area is approximately 20 square miles. They do have a service area which is based on automatic and mutual aid agreements that total of approximately 40 square miles. The South Coast Fire Protection District is the governing agency for the nonprofit South Coast Volunteer Fire Department. They do provide fire protection, rescue, emergency medical, and hazardous materials first responder services. The SOI was last updated in 1993 as part of a county-wide sphere of influence establishment for all the fire districts. The district's SOI is coterminous with the district boundary, and two areas of interest were identified. There is a small residential area that falls between the district and the Mendocino Fire Protection District, and also a timber area to the east. Both of those have not been recommended for addition to the sphere at this time, but have been identified for further review in the next sphere of influence update. A balance sheet has been requested from the district and is pending. That will be provided before we go to public hearing with the document. And that's
Okay.
all I have for.
Anybody from the South Coast Fire District like to make any comments on the document?
The balance sheet should have been received.
Come on up to the podium and state your name for the record, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, Greg Warner, South Coast Fire. Balance sheets should have been received. I think they were sent out a couple weeks ago at least to meet that 17th deadline. So I will check with that if they have not received them.
So it mentions in here that your financials are audited by a CPA firm?
Correct.
And has that CPA firm provided you with financial statements in the past?
That is correct.
Okay. I didn't see too many financial statements in this document. I see a budget, but I don't really see financial statements.
All the information that was requested, we had supposedly sent in. My secretary said she took care of it.
Yeah, what I'm really looking for is, you know, profit and loss statement, how you're performing, because some of your expenses are capital expenses, which wouldn't normally be expenses, but be depreciation. Also, we didn't see any reserves in there as well. What do you know what your reserves are?
We currently keep that all in one account, and we've talked about having a reserve account set aside. But the board this last year set aside, I believe, $25,000 a year out of the budget for it to go into reserves.
Good.
Carryover is approximately about $100,000 this year, which is going into new fire truck.
Good, good. Any comments for the chief? Tony?
Just quickly, wildfire protection is listed under district services, but you are SRA, correct?
That is correct.
And so I would just recommend to staff in describing district services that we note that wildland fire protection is primarily provided by CAL FIRE during fire season, and secondarily by the fire district.
That is correct, but we are primary. We always be CAL FIRE there. We don't have a CAL FIRE station
Right.
in our district,
Right.
and currently the CAL FIRE station in Point Arena is shut down. There's
Oh,
nobody
is it?
there.
Oh, for
Yeah.
the winter, correct?
That is correct.
But
And
they
there
are-
hasn't been anybody there in a couple weeks.
Okay. And, but that's just, I just want to correct so that people understand when they read these documents that you're not the primary coverage. You are, in other words, the state is responsible during wildfire season. They actually manage the incident once they get on scene after they take it over from you as chief, correct?
That is correct. There are many times where there is no CAL FIRE units
Yeah.
on the coast. We do station coverage when they're
Right.
all gone.
Right.
So,
So does our district, but it's
Yeah.
just a matter of describing, a descriptor.
yes.
Carrie?
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Orth. I think those are good points that maybe we should explain within the document.
And you shouldn't take this that, you know, I was on the fire board up in Willits before, and yeah, a lot of times the local firemen beat the state there.
Oh, yes.
So it's, don't look at it like we just want to have a legal description as far as the legal responsibility in there, so.
No, I totally understand.
Okay.
Anybody else? There was some discussion in the document that some areas will be reevaluated for the SOI. Why didn't we reevaluate this year or this time around?
This was an approach that was our understanding, to take this round of SOI updates to identify areas for study in the next one.
Okay.
That's in an effort to streamline the process and get these SOI updates done.
Because I noticed that was also the issue with the next one we're doing as well.
Right.
Now, what about any issues with outside their district? Are they developing any kind of JPA or not a JPA, but some kind of agreement with those areas, with those particular?
They do currently serve that residential area. They share service with the Mendocino Fire Protection District, which is to the north.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe that access to the areas to the east in the timber areas are off of Fish Rock Road, and I understand that is a difficult access area. I'm sure the district can speak to that better.
Good.
If I can make a comment on that, please. It is Redwood Coast Fire
Oh.
District, not Mendocino.
Thank
Okay.
you.
To the north.
Okay, to the north.
And as of within the last year and a half, we currently have auto aid with Redwood Coast, Sea Ranch, which is now North Coast, Sonoma, and with Anderson Valley. So we're working on getting stronger in all those areas.
Good, good. That's. Tony, you got a question? No.
I just wanted to note the importance of the fire stations to their insurance rate and maintaining those stations, upgrading them, and that is going to be a struggle for all the fire districts within Mendocino County, but it's very crucial. Our next review as well also states how their fire stations apply to their insurance rating, and I just want to point that out, how critical, you know, maintaining more than one fire station can
It's
be.
the ISO rating, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, I think that was enough for mine. I'd just like to see the reserves in there so we know what kind of reserves there are. They are profitable. We haven't seen that too much from some of the fire districts. You guys look like you're in pretty good shape. I appreciate that. Looks like the Prop 172 funds have helped out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
the other thing that really helped out was it 2010 or 2011 that you passed the parcel tax increment?
That increased it, yeah.
The increase, that is correct.
right.
And we still have some in reserve. We don't want to use all that money at this time. We're, you know,
Right.
breaking even, so there's no need to pull that additional tax
Right.
in at this time.
But as I remember, that was a highly successful measure.
Yes, that is correct.
Over 70%, I think, or
Yes,
very well, yeah.
yes.
And
And does that, and when we look at the financial summary on table 1.1, and we see that we've gone from, you know, basically a net income of around 100 to around 200, is that indicative of the money that's come in through this increment?
The additional funds were from support for CAL FIRE. During the Redwood Complex, we had 3 trucks over here, so
Okay.
the additional money's coming in from that. We were out the month prior with 3 engines
Okay.
all over the state with each apparatus, so that all brings in money back to our fire district.
Okay, so that's indicated on that table 1.1.
Yes.
And the money from the parcel tax increment is indicated in this reserve that is not totally delineated from the rest of the budget at this point.
I believe that is correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
before you leave, you said you're purchasing or saving to purchase a new engine.
there's a brand new Type 3 on
Okay.
order.
Okay.
And behind that, we need to upgrade Type 1. Currently, we're almost all of our equipment, which totals approximately 11 pieces of apparatus, are all, with the exception of 2, in the 2000s and up.
Okay,
So
great.
we're in good shape.
Excellent, thank you.
It's good to see you. Thanks. Carrie, did you have a question for the chief?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for being there for all of us in the recent firestorm. Most of my district was hit very badly. And to see all the fire trucks, I escorted the city of Fort Bragg into an area, and it was just in Potter. And I really appreciate it. So thank you very much, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? The last one, I just can't believe that they're a disadvantaged, unincorporated area. There's some pretty, substantial homes there, and it seems like the income would be a lot higher than that, but if that area is not in a duck, is the whole county a duck?
Brick Trails is.
Brick Trails is?
Yeah.
Yeah, just seems some pretty expensive homes there.
Along those lines, I just want to note that CALAFCO is undertaking a statewide duck analysis this coming year, so they're hoping to identify all areas statewide,
Yeah,
which will
that was
help
brought
make
up
that
in
easier.
CALAFCO. Carrie?
And there's also a definition of a duct. It's the Enviro Screen 3.1 or something to that nature, that actually leaves out most all throughout the state ducts that go by the other definitions that the agencies have. And that's why many of the areas have not been able, and this has to do mostly with carbon sequestration funding. And that's why there are like 28 counties in the state that can never take advantage of those funds because of their definitions. So sometimes you find these definitions are different depending on the state agency you're dealing with. And when the legislation was formed, it obviously, and I'm not, the communities that are taking advantage of those funds do have very bad air quality, where most the other counties do not have it like they do. But on the other hand, it should be a level playing field, and it has not been. So.
John, do you have any comments on this?
Well, I think it was covered. We're gonna get the complete financial information for table 1.1.
Yeah.
Because it certainly looks like the district is doing pretty well, showing that, they have significant net income every year. So that should either be a pretty good fund balance or a capital account.
Right. And putting $25,000 a year away for reserves is impressive. It's good to see after what we've seen in the past, some of these. Okay, thank you very much, Chief Warner, for coming in, and keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
I guess they're going back by Mountain House.
All right. This is a workshop. We'll see that maybe next month then for the public hearing?
I think we will hold the fire districts
All
to do
together? Okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll move on to 6B, Albion-Little River Fire District, Protection District, MSR SOI update.
Thank you. So this is the one that has Mendocino Fire Protection District to the north and Elk CSD to the south and Compchi CSD off to the east. This one is the Albion-Little River Fire Protection District. The SOI for this one was done also in 1993. It was formed in 1962 and has a service area of approximately 50 square miles. 37 square miles of that is their jurisdiction. They do provide multiple services, including fire protection, rescue, emergency medical, and hazardous materials first responder. With 2 areas of interest were identified in the 2016 Municipal Service Review. That would be the Van Dam State Park that is served along with Mendocino Fire Protection District, and the Navarro River Redwoods State Park, and surrounding timber production along Highway 128. Those areas have been identified to look at closer in the next sphere of influence update. Would note that there is a legal challenge by the timber companies that has to do with the Measure M benefit assessment that was passed in 2014. So they are working through that at this time. And if I'm happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Regarding that lawsuit or thing with the property owners, have you got any update on when that might be resolved?
There was recently an article in the paper, but I didn't see when it might go to hearing. It has to do, Measure M included the timber companies in their benefit assessment,
Right,
and that's
right.
what's being challenged.
Okay, so there's no chance of this being, we'll probably have to deal with it the next go around.
That's our recommendation at this time.
Yeah, okay. Tony?
Yes, could you break out and have a description in the final as to the donation, because it's a extremely large donation? Is it a trust? I mean, what form does that donation take? It's substantial, and I wish my department had that donation. We've received donations before in our department. I think we had a $50,000 donation, but it's so large and such an impact to their budget. If we could just have a descriptor, is that a one-time? Do they get the income from it? I mean, how does that operate?
Sure.
Anybody else? John?
Well, wouldn't that just show up under other revenue? And then I'm not sure it's within the time, it isn't in the time frame on the chart that's on 110. So it's, I'm not sure that's even something that needs to be included in this SOI update. So I think that was this fiscal year. So if we don't have financials for that year, then I don't know why we would include the information.
Okay. Regarding the financials, again, I think this one is more so a budget on table 1.1 than it is financial statement or profit and loss statement, because they have their capital outlays and all. And I noticed that the auditor is Paling and Paling, so he does our audit, so there's no reason why they can't provide an income statement. The balance sheet is sufficient, but I think we need to see an income statement. Even though they're doing real well budget-wise, at least in 15-16, but they had $54,000 out in capital outlays, which would normally be depreciated.
Okay.
So anyway, I see some improvements there. The other item that I had was, you mentioned back in '93 that the SOIs are all developed, but there wasn't anything about how we needed to approach future SOIs. So now we're doing that, but it'd been nice if back in '93 they would have made some statement that this needed to be looked at or that needed to be looked at. So I was going to give my comment, but he said earlier that there was just a blanket SOI that was performed.
Correct.
So what we're doing now is we're making progress in a way that we're coming up with different ideas for the next go around. Anybody else have any comments? John?
So on 109, where the reference is made to the lawsuit in 1.2.2.3, I wonder if there shouldn't be a sentence that just says what the nature of the challenge is, because I think the timber company is simply saying the benefit assessment doesn't apply to forest land. But anyway, I think that'd be relevant information. What is the dispute? And I think staff could probably just add one sentence that would clarify that. And then on page 112, under section 10, it shows a couple of sentences being struck out, but those sentences are still accurate, because although they had candidates for open seats, they were still filled by appointment because they didn't have multiple candidates. So, again, I think that language is still valid. I mean, the issue might be, I'm not sure that it's LAFCO's role to tell the districts they need to go out and recruit candidates. It's like any other election. Announcements are made by the elections department that there are seats available for election. And I know that in many of these smaller districts, regardless of whether it's cemetery or fire or water, board members will actively try to recruit candidates, especially if they know incumbents are not going to run. But I don't know that it's LAFCO's role to tell them they should do that. So I'm just kind of throwing that out for discussion.
So you're suggesting then that the strikeout language be remain?
Possibly, and just note the facts that there were either multiple candidates or they were filled by appointment.
Okay, Carol?
I wonder if the lumber companies in that area are using practices that might encourage spread of fire, that might be put into the report, so that we would have, in a sense, some statement of that would be a way of justifying the fact that the lumber company should be taxed just like everybody else, especially if there are procedures in that particular part of the forest that may be considered a fire hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic with what you're saying, but I'm not sure it belongs in this. I'm not sure the legal dispute really belongs in this document.
I just we don't normally get involved in the issues in a particular district, but I just wonder if that's a wise thing for us not to get involved in some of these things.
Then maybe we should just leave the text the way it is, which is that there's this legal challenge and it's not resolved to date.
I mean, should we describe the legal challenge?
Well, that's what
That's
Commissioner
what John
McCowan was suggesting, is that we
I just
briefly describe what the challenge is.
And I think if we do that, we should describe both sides of the challenge.
Well, I don't know if UMA is able to come up with language that's sufficiently neutral to satisfy all parties.
John?
Well, I think the neutral language, and I haven't looked at this for quite a long time, but I think it simply, does the benefit apply to, the term may be either forest land or timberland or not, and the reasons why some people think it might apply or should apply, that's where we would start getting into the nature of the dispute. But I think, again, and I would leave it to the executive director, if there's a simple description of the lawsuit that is, essentially just simply fact-based, but it may boil down to the company is saying this assessment doesn't apply to timberland. I think it may be that simple. And that same issue would affect more than one district also, obviously, since it involves a large landowner.
You're asking for direction, aren't you?
I think that we can look at this and try to come up with some neutral language and bring it back for commission.
And try.
Try it out next month.
Yeah.
Or next time. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I had a small thing. The Board of Supervisors is still trying to ascertain whether it has or has not made a decision on the allocation of Prop 172 funds for 17-18. And when I noticed, I don't want to try to resolve that here, obviously, but I did notice that in the South Coast document, we use the terminology that they anticipate the same amount of Prop 172 funds. And then in the Albion-Little River document, we use the phrase has not yet been approved. And I would just suggest that we use the same language in both.
Which one do you prefer?
Anticipates the same amount.
Same amount.
And if the board determines, which we may do later this month, that it's going to be something different, then, But the has not yet been approved kind of, prejudges an issue that the board is currently, actually, I think it's been agendized for December 19th to determine whether or not we have approved the 17-18 allocation.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, I think we should be consistent.
Okay.
And I think it is true that the districts do anticipate the same amount. Now, whether they get it or not is something the board is still wrestling with.
We could get more.
And then the other thing, if I may, on page 113, let me see if I can get back to that. So 113. Let me see. There's a sentence that says it is suggested. I think I've lost the where there was a suggestion that was not a suggestion but a recommendation that was made that some kind of an analysis be done of what the current and future needs. Do you remember that language? It's in the gosh darn.
While we're looking at that, can I just move? I got a couple things.
Maybe, yeah, let me just see, maybe I just missed it by a page.
Yeah, it is on 114.
Okay, well, now I have to find that, so.
It's the second paragraph down. There's one
Yeah.
sentence above it.
Okay, can I borrow your thing for a second? Okay, it is recommended that the district prepare a capital plan that identifies, and that, have we had that in other similar documents?
I don't think that we've added one for one of the fire districts.
You know what I thought when I read this was, these are voluntary groups. That's a big recommendation. I mean, maybe I would say it is suggested, but just to soften it a little bit. But maybe the commission likes it the way it is. And then the other thing I was going to suggest is that we say instead of it is also recommended that the district discuss the feasibility, that it simply say it is also recommended that the district consider the feasibility. I don't know if we're telling them what they should discuss.
So just soften it up a little
So,
bit.
yeah, I mean, that's just my suggestion. I don't know. I read that and I went, whoa, which volunteer is going to take on preparing a capital plan, and all the rest of it.
Well, we did hear from Chief Warner today that they are putting 25,000 with an idea of coming together and coming up with some capital improvements. Now, whether it's a plan itself, it would be nice if these districts do start doing some planning, though, with money that they do have.
It's not uncommon to have a capital plan, especially because you have to go to taxpayers with your elections to raise your funding for those capital plans.
With their rolling stock, a lot of times they know, in fact, as the chief put it, everything is in the 2000s, et cetera. They kind of have an idea of what's the oldest piece of equipment and what's going to basically age out or.
And it won't start, so we need something here soon.
Yeah.
Carrie?
Well, I do know Potter Valley they talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
The Community Service District, which the Potter Valley Fire Department is under. And the reason for that is because many times a small volunteer fire district can pick up equipment from a state list.
Right.
And if it's on their improvement and they have the funding in reserve in order to get it, they've already taken the action of approval of here's what we're looking for, here's what we need to approve, so the fire chief can take immediate action in securing whatever that truck may be or whatever equipment that's on the state list. So that's just my input.
It also operates for the federal grant programs that are out there, where many of our districts have gotten federal engines where they pay 3/4 to 9/10 of a new engine, and you need that in your capital program.
Well, I'm not opposing capital programs,
Right.
Or I'm not opposing these kinds of documents being
By
prepared.
suggesting a recommendation, I don't really care which one you want to do. It still
Okay,
still
if-
requires it, so, not requires, but. make it
It's
think about
also inherent in this particular item is because of the discussion of their fire stations. That is where I think it's very apropos, because what's going on with the insurance companies is they're putting more requirements on stations. And so if you let a station deteriorate or you don't have the volunteer pool to respond to that particular station, they're removing those as quick as they can from the insurance rating, which is really what, you know, in a case, the 5-mile radius of a station service area is very critical to the affordability of residents within getting fire insurance. So it's important.
So what language would you like to see, Dan? Just
Well,
suggested?
you know, I just suggested
Okay.
what I thought would be softening a little bit
You have it?
and being a little less Big Brother-ish, like, I mean, I think these districts, for one thing, they are people who have stepped forward and are taking a
No,
lot
I
of
agree.
responsibility.
Agreed.
In almost every case, nobody's getting paid.
Sometimes
this.
the auditor can do that, or their auditor can help them with a capital improvement plan too.
Yeah.
John, do you have a
So I
comment?
don't care.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Hamburg. It's this Albion-Little River, I believe it is 100% volunteer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who's going to write this plan, you know?
But I don't think a suggestion by this commission is unwarranted. So that's, you know, I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this. It's just as I read it last night, I just said, well,
Okay.
But
we could soften the language. And the other thing was just, since we're not recommending what the district discussed or not discussed, just that, you know, that we recommend that the district consider the feasibility of increased collaboration, such as formation of a JPA, et cetera.
We're encouraging too, and just hoping to make things better. John?
Well, and I think part of Commissioner Hamburg's point too, are we including similar language in other districts that are similarly situated? For instance, the ones we would think that Albion-Little River should be talking to. I think that's a good idea to have them exploring those issues. But if we're going to say it here, we should say it for other districts as well, probably.
Yeah, be consistent. Okay, I have one on table 1.2, page 111. On number 1, there are approximately 2250. What's DOF?
I'm sorry.
Department of Finance? Because it isn't explained anywhere where I could figure it out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Department of Finance.
Maybe we could spell that out.
Sure.
And then number 2, the population of the district has not increased over the past few years and not expected to increase. Well, you state somewhere else that the population has increased 0.8%. So maybe we could put that 0.8% in there as well. But it's still insignificant. And I noticed on this one, and I meant to bring it up at the South Coast one, that they have a very good website and they're putting all their agendas on and all, but I didn't see that in South Coast. Do they have a website?
I don't believe they do.
Maybe we can I know
Make that
it's,
suggestion.
make a suggestion too, because those are really good transparency items. And they're not difficult to put together.
There are
And here's an all volunteer program, they got a pretty darn good website.
And there are companies that will, for about $100 a month, will do a full compliant website for any government agency.
It's gonna be mandatory, I believe.
That's why I'm mentioning it. They don't have to invent the wheel. There are others inventing the wheel for them for a fee.
Anybody from the public like to comment on the Little River MSR?
I'm late, I'm from Fort Bragg, sorry.
Oh.
Long drive.
I'm sorry, we already approved it.
But so I'll probably just leave, but thanks anyhow.
Okay.
We were very happy with Fort Bragg.
Oh, good.
Did you want to make any comments about your MSR SOI?
I'll make one quick comment.
It's sort of out of order, but
We came and did an MSR with you guys probably in
what's
2000.
the name for the record,
Oh, Marie
please?
Jones, Community Development Director, City of Fort Bragg. So in 2008, we did an MSR with you guys, and it was kind of a painful process. I just want to say that this one was amazing. Your staff was awesome. They asked all really great questions. I funneled the information to them, and then they wrote in a truly stunningly beautiful document that I had no comments on. And I just want to say thank you, because you guys rock.
Thank you.
And I'm not a, what do you call it? I don't just gush all the time. So this actually means something. Like I can't tell you how many times I hire consultants and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta edit the goddamn consultant work again. So nice job.
I mentioned that when we approved it. It is a very good document, and anybody in Fort Bragg should read it.
Yeah, it's super well written and very well organized, and actually it's going to be super helpful for us when we do our local coastal program amendment to modify the zoning for the mill site, because it really answers a lot of the questions there and has all that information consolidated. I mean, we had that all information all around the city, but it's been consolidated. So
Good.
super nice document, really easy to work with you guys both. And you should appreciate these two because they do their jobs super well.
We do.
Okay. See, it was worth the drive.
We don't get many of those, believe me.
That would
Also, Maria, I'm going to be contacting you later today about an item with Cal Recycle and the C&D ordinance
Oh,
at
right,
Casper.
Yeah, I guess we're the poster child of success for that. I don't know.
Yeah,
why.
so Barbara from Cal Recycle is on us again, so I'll be talking to you later.
Oh, sure. Give me a call.
Thank you for coming over. Now you can do some shopping, maybe.
Yeah, sure. Buy local. Sort of.
Sort of, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late.
Jerry,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that it was Larkin Filer, who worked on this project, not me, but I will take the compliments on her behalf and pass them on.
Good. It was nice to hear city come back and say that. Okay, any more comments on the Little River SOI MSR? Albion-Little River. I don't have any more. We'll shove this off for public hearing when we're ready. I think you got all the comments. And you've got 7 minutes, Carrie. All right, we'll move on to matters of discussion and possible action. There's none. Information and report items. 8A, work plan, current and future proposals.
So we don't have anything new under active or future proposals. I do want to give an update on the work plan. We are pushing to have all of the fire districts to workshop by March, and then hope to have a public hearing in April. That is our hope. So we are still working to get information from a number of districts, but we're going to start pushing a little harder on that. It's good to have the city of Fort Bragg done. The city of Willits, I am in contact with city staff, and we're working through the sphere of influence issues that they have identified. And we are also working with Brook Trails CSD staff, and hope to have that back for workshop in January. We're starting to work on the Redwood Coast Fire Protection District. That one may also be ready by January, but for sure by February. And then we're going to start sending out the information requests for some of these other ones. That's where we are now.
So how's it lining up with your work plan that you had in your contract?
So this is the work plan. This is all the items that are on the work plan for
Okay.
the this fiscal year.
So we're still hopeful to get this done before our fiscal year end.
We likely will not get through all of these this fiscal year, but we hope to at least have started all of them.
Any comments? All right, move on to 8B, correspondence.
Do you have anything?
We have any?
I don't think we have.
None. 8C, executive officer report.
I have a couple of items. As we were talking with Brook Trails CSD, they do have an ethics training that is coming up in January, on January 20th. They did want us to share that. It is free and open to the public. So that's January 20th at from 9:30 to noon. And they're going to provide a flyer for us, and then we're going to send that out to the special districts as an informational item. And I wanted to provide an update on the special district election process. Council did advise that the code specifies 4 years for each seat. And so we have sent out the nomination packets. We sent those out the week of November 15th and have started that process. We will have to do it again in August at the end of their term. And I don't think I have anything else to report.
All right, we'll go on to 8D, committee reports. I don't believe, did the PNP meet? Executive committee didn't meet either. The committee, executive committee we're planning a meeting after the January meeting. Just give you a heads up. An agenda will be going out soon. 8E, Commissioner Reports, Comments, or Questions?
Over here.
Oh, Tony, sorry.
A couple of things. One is that the Brick Trails water curtailment to new hookups has been lifted by the state.
Oh, good.
We currently have 24 water hookups that were approved prior to the curtailment being brought forward. That was just a number that was generated by a waiting list that we had at the time. We anticipate that these will go fairly quickly because there is now demand as the economy has improved and people are ready to start building again, and for other reasons, obviously. Also, there's an issue that I want to make the commission aware of. That is when a city like Willits passes a half-cent sales tax for roads, it gets collected throughout the zip code area and is actually being charged to, I just bought a new car, it was charged to myself for purchasing the new car. So the unincorporated area outside the city boundary is still collecting additional half-cent sales tax for transportation. I just want to make that note for future discussion.
Well, you might review whether that's actually legal or not, because
Yes.
it's, I think, a matter of law. It could only apply within the city limits.
It's certainly an issue for the State Board of Equalization. Why don't they use the other 4 digits in a zip code to differentiate
Well, the
between
Board of
areas?
Equalization has their process. I don't
Right.
think that would trump what the law is, but it would require someone having to pay a firm to unravel it
Right.
and properly notify who collects it and who doesn't, I think.
I suspect you're probably right.
Carol?
Also, when a city passes a transportation increase in sales tax, for instance, Ukiah, the rest of you all do use our streets all the time, so it makes perfectly good sense that you would pay the tax when you're buying things in the city, because Lord knows you use the roads to get there.
Well, the tax isn't going to the city of Willits. It's going, I don't know how it's dispersed.
Well, some of it stays in the
maybe
city.
it is.
The half-cent transportation tax does stay in the city.
Maybe you could report to us next meeting on.
Well,
where it goes.
we're going to look at it because it's clearly, Brick Trails is 9% of the county road structure, so
Yeah.
any monies that we can identify would help.
Anything else? We got 1 minute for Carol.
I'm just curious, thinking in terms of brook trails and roads, it seemed to me in the recent fires that we experienced, having another way out of brook trails that's improved seems to me to be pretty crucial. So
they're
I
working
just
on
wondered
that.
what the status of that is.
Carrie?
And actually, last Thursday, I was not able to attend. I was away at state meetings in Sacramento. But there was an all-day session, and it did have to do with fire-safe planning. The Board of Supervisors has appointed Supervisor Krosky to represent us in this planning process with Fire Safe Council. And all county supervisors are to look at their own districts, and where there may be problems. For instance, in my own, we think of brook trails, but for instance, in my own district, I have Redemeyer Road, El Dorado, Deerwood area.
Yeah.
So, you know, we all have them. And fire planning is something we need to do, especially given the circumstances that we just went through. And people need that planning and need to know where to go and how to get out.
And the roads need to be in a condition that the secondary roads need to be good enough for people to use in emergencies.
We need to send you to the state level, because they keep taking and taking. And actually, the gas tax goes for transit throughout the state. You know, there's a lot of taking of that funds that doesn't necessarily go to roads.
I understand. I mean, there's gas tax money going into bicycle trails, which bicycle trails are lovely. However, when you need a second exit to get out in case of emergencies, that seems to me to be incredibly important.
you're not telling me anything. I couldn't get in and I couldn't get out on October 9th.
This was discussed at the board, at the Brook Trails board last month, and they're also trying to make improvements to Sherwood Road out to Laytonville. That is a secondary access, but there was discussed, the third district supervisor was there giving her an update. You could add to it.
And I just want to add that the state legislature needs to act. And we need to lobby them to so act, because it really is not just a Mendocino County issue.
Well, I think secondary roads are important for STIP monies to be used for it, and I think we need to start, well, anyhow. I get off
And
my
one more
soapbox.
comment before I take out of here. MCOG
Okay.
meets this afternoon, I think at 1 or 1:30. You ought to come, because that's where the funding allocations come from.
Right. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Any CalAFCO business legislative report? None?
Oh, go ahead.
CalAFCO sent a thank you letter for sending commissioners and representatives to their conference recently.
Good. Anything else? We're adjourned.
Bam.
I get to do that
on
like once a
my-
month. That's fun.
Are you trying to get them over?